All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here talking about real music in real time for real people, just like you right there, just like me right here. So, a few years ago, Neal Schon embarked on his own little version of Journey. We refer to it as Journey Through Time. I believe that doing that in the long run actually helped Neal Schon create goodwill with classic Journey fans. And also, he leveraged a better version of the band that I think at the time he was a little bit fed up with. And obviously, he had his little disagreement with Jonathan Cain going. And then Arnell was really beat after the tour that the band did with Def Leppard. He just was not at 100% strength. And, again, you can't really blame Arnell because that's a brutal catalog and a rigorous schedule to try to keep up with and to be able to pull that off every night. But there were some difficulties, let's just put it that way, on that tour. And then you had two guys in the band who seemed as though they were mailing it in. Not that they weren't doing a good job performing, but word had gotten out that maybe they weren't all that enthusiastic about being in the band, which I think created more problems. And Neal Schon ended up solving the problems by firing those two guys after they supposedly wanted to get more or less like a golden parachute and then say goodbye, and Neal Schon, I guess, and the band ended up settling with those guys. They got some of what they wanted, but Neal got the band he really wanted, which was more like the Journey Through Time project. If you go listen to Journey Through Time, if you go on YouTube and watch those videos, it's like next level compared to what the band had been doing. And no offense to Arnell, Dean Castronovo as a vocalist to me is really close to Steve Perry. And not only that, he's playing drums, which I'm sure Perry, if he's aware of the situation, which I'm pretty sure he probably is Perry is a drummer himself. So he never got behind the drum kit and sang. Keep in mind, Dean is using one of these cheesy headset microphones, which, again, not the kind of range you're going to get from a full strength regular microphone that you would be singing into if you were the lead vocalist standing on stage. Dean obviously has to, move around on drums. So he is doing some stuff that's fairly difficult to do, and he seems to do it fairly effortlessly. So good on him, right? So really smart for Neal Schon to show fans what the band was capable of doing and what maybe Journey was capable of doing if they could, kind of clean the slate and then enlist a new group of musicians. He had Marco Mendoza on bass as well, which was kind of sending a message that maybe we needed a bit more proficiency over on bass guitar. Maybe, I don't know. But certainly Marco is a great bass player, as is Randy Jackson, who is in the band now. But I think what Neal effectively did was he leveraged that moment, even though I think he got in trouble with some folks because he had Journey Through Time, and the word journey is obviously in there, and that created some issues. But I think what's happened is that Neal has a band that is more like the band they had on the benefit night there and then on subsequent dates, the Journey Through Time band. Now, they don't have Dean and they don't have Greg Raleigh, okay? And those are sticking points for some of the old school fans that would love to see Raleigh, believe it or not, back in Journey. It wouldn't be crazy or far-fetched to bring Greg back in. Even now, you can imagine Greg being in the band. And like I said, Dean is closer to Perry than Arnell. And I think Dean creates excitement and has this sort of over the top sense of humor. Not that Arnell isn't a great frontman, but it's a different dynamic. And I think the older school fans appreciate what Dean brings to the table. But quite honestly, this new version of Journey, I think, is more like that band that Neal put together, except you've got Arnell. And Arnell is rested. Arnell, I think, sounds better than he did a couple of years ago because those tours are brutal on the vocal cords and the catalog and the tour and the pressure. I think Arnell knows that he's filling these enormous shoes every night, and I think he thinks about it a lot. I think I think it gets in his head a little bit, and sometimes it affects him. It did definitely affect him at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I think that was unfair. I mean, he's singing in front of all of these people and Steve Perry. You know, you don't do that to somebody. You really don't. Maybe I know Dean wasn't in the band, but I think Dean probably would have handled the pressure better if they brought him back and asked him to sing. But they were inducting Steve Smith, and I think they should have inducted Dean too. I've said they should have inducted Arnell just because of longevity, and people were laughing at me. But the whole point is that those two guys kept the brand going. I mean, little nod to Steve Augeri out there as well. Jeff Scott Soto, 11 months, but certainly probably not enough time to consider him for inducting, into the Hall of Fame. But definitely there was some bridges that needed to be crossed that kept the band going. Of course, the Hall of Fame committee was more concerned with the classic lineup, and that's why you had Ainsley Dunbar getting inducted. They really like that whole Infinity thing more probably than the Escape thing, but they acknowledge that those two albums are probably the band's best work, and then you have to bring everybody in who worked on those records, including Greg Raleigh, who was there. So just for the record, I think Neal Schon played this really well. He got a better band out of it. Those other two guys who weren't all that into being in the band ended up trying to get their golden parachutes. They got some, but they didn't get maybe all of what they wanted. They certainly caused a little bit of pain for fans on the way out, but I'm pretty sure nobody's going to remember it all that much. I think the band moving forward is a lean machine, and they've got this guy on drums now who knows music inside out, Narada Michael Walden. A lot of people wouldn't have ever thought that he would be in Journey, but yet here we are. Just Neal Schon using good judgment, quite honestly, to bring somebody in with not only the playing chops, but also the thinking chops. And you need them both these days if you want to make any kind of an impact. If you're an older band, to have that in your arsenal, I think is really cool and just, sets you apart. So yeah, Journey Through Time, that was a great band. And I think that is kind of what this new band is all about to some degree. Again, you have Kane back and you have Arnell back, but I think this will make the old fans a little happier and will keep the new fans occupied and maybe create even newer fans with some of this new material that's going to be released. So we shall see if that works. But in the meantime, check out those Journey Through Time videos with Dean Castronovo. I wish I was there that night. It would have been like the best concert I've ever been to.